So we're going to start building some sequences here. All right, we're going to pull up our main view again to get back here. Home base. We're going to select our quantum profiles. And they turned on for me because I still have highlight on. I'm going to turn highlight off because I'm going to want to see colors and stuff like that for what we're doing. Okay, we see we're going to be dealing with quantum profiles. So I'm going to go ahead and mask the fixture sheet to those so I can see them. Or you can mask to the programmer only just to see what's in the programmer. Let's do that actually. Let's go to programmer only. No, I'll follow the tutorial. It wants me to go to the quantum profiles mask. So let's do that. All right. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to control the dimmer. Now, to control the different functions of these lights, we're going to use the encoders, which are these 4 wheels here. This console has 4 encoders. The physical MA3 has 5 encoders, but in the 2 software mode, the 5th encoder is not used. It's basically a scroll wheel where I could scroll around through these tables, and I also would press down on it. You can press down on these encoders to input values. Okay, let's just talk about the encoders real quick. I'm going to go back to the tutorial, back up to the top to our graphics. So on the MA2, the physical MA2, which is what the software is based on, it was just one wheel that you turned left to right, and you could also click down on one of them, the 5th one, which would be an input device. The rest of them you didn't click on really. For the MA3, the encoders are actually dual encoders. So the outer wheel here performs one function and the inner wheel performs another one. You could spin them independently. I'm pretty sure that the outer wheel is a course adjustment. So it would be in bigger increments. So like if I'm spinning this inner wheel, you know, on the dimmer, let's say, it would increment by like 1s as I spin that wheel. If I use the outer wheel, it might increment by 5 or 10. So it's going to skip, it's going to move a lot faster. That's why that's how they're used for these. And then you can also click down onto the inner wheel of any of these coders to like bring up, say that the calculator window, like, let me get rid of this. When I'm clicking on these boxes here and it's open up this value, the function I'm actually doing is pressing down on that encoder wheel. So if you're physically there, you'd be pressing the wheel. Okay, so that's just how the encoders work. Now I map the attributes to certain attributes to these encoders by using these tabs here, which we went through the first lab. I want to deal with dimmer, so I go to the dimmer tab. On the software, there's multiple ways you can do this. I can drag the encoder wheel to put these at full. That's what we want to do, is put them at full. Or I can just click on the box and enter 100. Since we're in natural now, we're dealing with percentage, 0 to 100. Or for dimmer, like I said, there's shortcuts. Period is 0, at is full. So however you want to get your values in there, either way. If we're on the PC, the encoders don't make much sense. They're a little bit harder to use, so I like to click on the boxes. You can do whatever you like. Okay, next, we're going to be dealing with our position. And what we want to do is we want to tilt these so that they are all sort of hitting the downstage edge of the stage. Since these are in different positions and pointing different directions and we have different inverts on, we're going to select these groups individually. That's why we created these groups that are split out by hanging position, so we can do this. Because if I go to position, let's go to the position tab. So I've mapped my encoders to pan and tilt. I start tilting these one direction, they don't match. So if I'm trying to get to the downstage edge, I can't do it just with all of them selected. So I'm going to grab my upstage profiles here. I'm going to take my rendering down because that's quite bright. All right. And again, you have the fine, normal, fine, and ultra options here. For pan and tilt, I would leave yours on fine for both, just so you have more control, because we do need to use the encoder for this. So I'm just going to tilt those until they get to downstage edge-ish. I'm going to grab my mid-stage profiles now, and you'll notice that since I made a change to an attribute, I clicked on a new group, it released the first selection, which was my upstage, and selected the new selection. So I don't have to clear my selection each time. If I make a change to something and then move on to a different set of lights or group, it will release the previous one and select the new one. So mid stage, I'm going to tilt those to the downstage edge-ish. I made a change, so I can just click front of house now, and then those are going in the opposite direction. So point those back towards downstage edge. If you're trying to do this without the 3D visualizer and the stage view, just go to that we built. And you can use the cameras here to move around and confirm that you're where you need to be. All right. Next thing we want to do is we're going to put these in a gobo, a slowly rotating gobo. All right. So let's press the gobo tab here for the encoders. These fixtures actually have 2 gobo wheels here. So I see where it says gobo 1, there's that little shark fin telling me there's more options if I click. If I click that, that's gobo wheel number 2. We're going to be dealing with gobo wheel 1 because it has a rotation function. Gobo wheel 2 is static on these fixtures, and we want a rotating gobo. So we're dealing with G1 and the G1 rotate. That's what those little diamond brackets mean. Okay, now with the gobos here, for some of you this might work, for some of you it doesn't. For some reason, this software, when you patch these, we patch these in 2 separate steps in the patch because they're on 2 different universes. When we do that, sometimes the software doesn't read this next part. So if I click on the G1 box, I should get thumbnails of all my gobos. If this is blank, what you need to do is do it by different groups, okay? So I did not want to do that. Do not clear. All right. If you did, hit oops and say okay to oops as an undo, because I just got rid of my values. And then I want to do it one more time. Look at my fixture sheet. You should have bold, red background, red text for these values for dimmer in position. I messed that up, my bad. All right, I need to select all of my quantum profiles now. That's the step that I missed. I was still just on front of house, so make sure you select all of your quantum profiles. Because we're gonna put a gobo on all of them. So if I click on this box, you should see thumbnails like I was saying. If you don't, you might have to do these by separate groups down here. For some reason, the patch doesn't always show that these are the same type of fixture. And if I select 2 different types of fixtures and I try to click on these and get these options, it won't, because they're 2 different fixture types and their attributes are in different places and are different. So if that happens, I can help explain that in one of the help sessions better if you're having that issue, but you should see the thumbnails. If you don't, do it separately by hanging position group for these. All right, and in this thumbnail group here, I see that each gobo on gobo wheel number 1 is repeated 3 times within this list. There's the first one, where it's just the name of the gobo. There is a second set where they have the little diamond brackets beside it. And the third set that has an asterisk beside the name. These are referring to the different rotation modes or gobo modes for these gobos. We're on the rotating wheel, so we have rotation function for these, and we have two types of rotation. The first one, if I just select the gobo with the name, is going to be an indexing rotation. So don't do this. I'm going to do it right now to demonstrate. So let's just say I pick windmill with no diamond brackets, just the name. So I put the gobo in here, and then I try to use the rotation. So I'm going to drag the rotation up. You'll see that it rotates. And I'm in ultra normal mode. I'm going to come back down. So as I drag this, the gobo spins. When I stop, it stays there. So I have the rotation, index rotation function here, which means that I can spin a gobo to a certain point and then it stays there. So this is good for like corporate logos. If I had a certain image that I'm trying to get upright, like a snowman or something like that, you would use the indexing mode and spin it to where it's oriented to where you want it, and store that. The second mode here, so if I select this windmill with the diamond brackets beside it, and I have rotation up here, it's a continuous rotation by speed. So I've rolled it up to 72.2, and as I move this, the rotation gets faster and slower. You will notice that as I come down here, I was spinning, what am I spinning? Clockwise right now. As I come down towards 50, it gets slower from 100. And then at 50-ish, the gobo is just kind of stopped. As I go back down further towards 0, from 50, it starts off slow and gets faster towards 0 in the opposite direction. So now we're counterclockwise. So that's how you deal with the continuous rotation. Usually it's from 0, it starts fast in one direction, slows that down towards 50, where it would just be stopped. And then from 50 up to 100, it's slowly increasing its rotation speed in the other direction. Cool. If I go all the way to the top, there's also 100 for this. It's not scrolling like I want it to. Okay. If I get to 100, usually that's an index position, so it will stop. So that's just kind of how you read this. What we want is a slow rotation, whichever direction you like. So just put these in a slowly rotating. All right, so now we've created a kind of a look that we want. We're going to go ahead and store this as a cue onto a sequence. All right, so we're going to hit store. And we're going to select fader number 1 over here. So by doing that, I created this sequence in the pool. If I go to the pool here, you see now I have the second sequence that I created. I stored the cue into that sequence and automatically assigned the sequence to this executor. Excuse me. Excuse me. All right, for this sequence, we're going to actually have more than one cue. We're going to create a multi-cue sequence. So we're going to make a change here. We're going to increase the speed of the gobo rotation on those quantum profiles. So I've still got them selected. I'm going to take the speed here, the G1 rotate, up faster. And now I'm going to store this as the second cue onto the same sequence. To do that, you hit store. And now when you're creating a second cue on any sequence, it will give you this pop-up as to what do you want to do. Because as of right now, it's behaving as a single cue sequence, meaning that I could be wanting to overwrite that cue, merge stuff into that cue, remove stuff or release stuff from that cue. I also get this last option to the right that says create second cue, which is going to tell the console, okay, this sequence is no longer just dealing with one cue, it has multiple cues in it. So I'm going to hit that. So now I have 2 cues here. It's harder to see, I know. Let's go ahead and select this executor. So hit select. Click on that executor so that we can look at this queue list here. And it's now displaying this executor. So I see two queues.